Christian parenting.
David, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Monica. So good to be with you.
I'm super excited for this conversation, and no doubt my women's health months are some of my favorites, and I think a lot of listener favorites. And today we get to talk about something I've never brought up, and really I'm kind of on my own journey learning more about, and that is supplements. And so this is going to be fun, but before I even allow us to go there, I have loved getting to know you and hearing some of your stories. So I'm going to make you kind of backpedal and give a little more introduction. And so if people are just eager to get to the supplement part, they can fast forward a little bit or whatever. But I hope people will stick around for this. So tell us who you are and maybe how you ended up, well, what you're doing now, and then how you ended up where you are.
Sure. So, great to be with you, Monica.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And yeah, so I currently run a company called Previnex. We make premium, clinically effective nutritional supplements that promote longevity, performance, everyday health. We also donate vitamins to malnourished kids with every customer order. So we just have a huge heart for serving these kids who are actually not dying from food or starvation, but dying because they're not getting vitamins, which is kind of crazy that exists. So yeah, we are just in business to create health and flourishing. And so if I rewind the story, I mean, I could take this a lot of different ways, Monica. We could talk about the faith journey. We could talk about the business journey. We could do all the above.
Okay, well, I just love that when we first met, we have a whole lot in common. So you're going to have to go back to like college and take it from there and include both the business and the faith journey. Go for it.
Right,
it's interesting.
I'm going to do the shortest version I possibly can so your listeners don't fall asleep here. But
they won't.
So if we go all the way back, so I was born into a Jewish family. I went to Hebrew school. I was bar mitzvahed. And I'd say my parents were Jewish by ancestry only. I was kind of always somewhat curious about religion, but it just never landed that you were born into a religion and that's like the religion you were. And that didn't make sense to me. And so while I was somewhat curious, I just was like, yeah, you know what, figure that out later if there's anything to it. Sure, fine. But I kind of decided, I don't want anything to do with this. And so if there was one word that I could use to describe myself as kind of a teenager, younger man, it would be ambitious. So I was super ambitious. I poured myself into everything I did. And so during my high school years, it was athletics and water polo, where I earned a scholarship to play at UCLA. The team won the national championship first 2 years in school. I got to represent the U.S. internationally, which was a whole lot of fun. But at some point, I realized, water polo is probably not going to pay the bills, and it's time to shift that ambition into something else. And that something else became finance and investing. And so I was a Wall Street research analyst, which I'll just put a flag in that. We'll come back to it, where I learned about the supplement industry. But I poured everything into finance and investing, where I ultimately launched a hedge fund and was named one of the top research analysts and stock pickers in the country by the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. And so on paper,
wow,
I've kind of accomplished everything I wanted to. I'm living the American dream. But deep inside, the story was much, much different. I was miserable. I was empty. And I reached out somewhere super unfamiliar, and that was to God. And I was like, God, if you exist, I want to be in a relationship with you. Would you just reveal yourself to me? And you got to be careful what you pray for, as you know. And the next day set off events that changed my life. And so I had two offices living in New York City. So we had one in Midtown Manhattan. We had one out in Long Island. And I was going to the Long Island office to get there, three subways to a train. And very, very, very long story short, I'm on the subway, the first subway, and there's a street preacher. Give your life to Jesus. I go to the next train. Someone on the walk there, same message. Give your life to Jesus. I go to the third train. Give your life to Jesus. I go to the office, and I'm like, whoa, this is a little weird, this timing here. And so, God threw darts at me all day long. And it's a long testimony story, but to weave in the vocational side of this. So I started my career as a research analyst. That was my job. So my job for many years was to read clinical studies on nutritional supplements, tour supplement manufacturing facilities, meet with executives of companies, meet with investors, learn supply chain, just become an expert in all things nutritional supplements. And I think I had no ambition to ever start a nutritional supplement company. My blinders were on. It was like hedge fund, make as much money as possible, like status, power, all the world stuff. And But I think the two things that deeply or left like real impressions on me from my research days were, number one, there was all this proper peer-reviewed clinical data that supported taking advanced levels of certain micronutrients and omegas and probiotics and health outcomes. And as a former athlete, I was like, why did I never kind of know or learn this? Like, this was real legit data. And I just remember thinking, gosh, how could this have benefited my athletic career? But like, thankfully I'm learning this now because it can promote health throughout my life. But the second thing that was probably like pretty disturbing to me was just, I had a front row seat at just how predatory and exploitative the supplement industry was. And so unless a consumer has a background in nutritional science, I mean, they quite literally have a 0% chance of understanding what products can benefit them, what ingredients can benefit them. And so that impacted me, but yet my blinders were on. I was like, hedge fund, hedge fund, hedge fund, let's go. And, build a name for myself type of thing. And so weaving that back into my testimony, like I went to bed that night after encountering these street preachers on the subway and all these things. I mean, when I say God was throwing darts at me, I mean, it was just dart after dart after dart. And I just kind of, as a really analytical person, I could not ignore the timing of all these things happening in relation to me praying the night before. And like any good research analyst, I'm like, well, I better roll my sleeves up, 100 hours of research, let's figure this Jesus guy out. And so kind of went through all the questions I had, like, is Jesus a real person or a mythological figure? Is the Bible, like the New Testament, even authentic, or is this just propaganda? That was probably my bias at the time. And, all the questions I had. And the big one, like, did Jesus really die and come back to life? Because like that's a pretty important one.
Yep.
And so I was a history major at UCLA. I went to law school as part of my journey. And so like finding information outside of the New Testament was really important. Like I wanted to verify it. And then I looked at like best arguments for and against other religions. And so like, again, this is a huge, long story. I'll wrap it up with this is, if I was being intellectually honest, after all the research, I was like, whoa, like Jesus was a real person. The New Testament is like one of the most historically authentic documents in existence. And like, yes, Jesus died and came back to life, and like, it changes everything. So that weekend I go to church in New York City for the first time. Tim Keller's the preacher. I walk into Redeemer on the Upper East Side, and the sermon series was Jesus of the New Testament. And the sermon that day was how to give your life to Jesus. I was like, holy moly. So I gave my life to Christ, changed everything. And like the final vocational link is like, I knew I was not supposed to be doing the hedge fund. I just kind of knew it. And I didn't know what God wanted me to do, but I knew God existed. I was on fire. I'm like, oh my gosh, God is real. Like, he has designed me for a purpose, and it's not really my life to live. It's Christ through me. And like, this is incredible. Like, God, whatever you want me to do, I'm game. You want me to go be a teacher in Ecuador? Like, you want me I don't care. You tell me, you give me my orders. And that's where just the dart throwing of like that day became dart throwing of friends coming up to me in this like 2-day period. You're the guy who knows, you're like the nutritional supplement expert. What should I take? What should I do? And so finally I was like, I wonder if like God is kind of telling me like I should go into this field. And so that's what got me started. But it was a very refining entrepreneurial journey, and God knew what he was doing there and stripped a bunch of things for me to rebuild me up and like really make me his. And that was probably a very long-winded opening
excellent
answer.
You could have gone longer. I love that story. And it's like the testimony everybody wishes they had. Like, that's so powerful. And so, yeah, it leaves no doubt that God was after you. And I love how you responded. And I know since then, found your wife, got married, have a daughter. God's used all those things, I know, to really refine you and grow you. So it's just super fun. I'm just so happy that we met. And we also have, you mentioned law school in there, but you went to Pepperdine Law School and I went to Pepperdine undergrad. So we have that in common as well. But so many cool things in your story. So how about Previnex? Give us what led to that specifically and how long you've been doing it, and kind of bring us up to speed.
Yeah. So when I felt like God calling me to the nutritional supplement industry, I mean, I knew nothing about how to build a business. Like, I wouldn't consider a hedge fund like a real business. And so I looked into like, I kind of had all these contacts in the industry. I knew the best supplement manufacturer, the best weight loss company. And the vision originally was healthcare is broken. Things have to move to prevention. Whether the industry likes it or not, it has to, or it's going to bankrupt. And, why not create something that can try to introduce clinically proven prevention programs into traditional healthcare? That was the thought. My dad was a physician. I kind of had a perspective on traditional healthcare. And so I partnered with a couple companies and created this kind of little test pilot distribution platform and learned a lot. But ultimately realized we could serve our doctors and customers much better if we started to own everything. There were just different challenges, and I think God was just creating some, walls and things to just drive us toward this. And so Previnex officially launched in 2013. And I think, when you go from having this like menu of products and you're serving a group of people, and then you go to like a product that you've just launched, it's like, oh yeah, we'll do this with you. And that's like, oh, you need more products. It's like, oh no, what? Oh no. And so I mean, good golly, it was a tough, like grind it out early day. But what we kind of have always been good at is like, number one is creating best-in-class products. So I think this is important to go through. I mean, so launching Previnex, I had a full perspective on the industry. And I think the only way to do it was to do it best-in-class. And so kind of came to it with like a blank canvas of saying, all right, the supplement industry is not well-regulated.
Right.
To illustrate that, Monica, you and I could go to the beach in Hawaii, put sand in capsules, put a really fancy label on a bottle, put those sand capsules into a bottle. We could sell those. With my background and we could, of course we'd never, it lacks any integrity, but like this could happen. And so I came at this like, well, listen, the pharmaceutical industry is like regulated, and like, I'm not going to speak to pharmaceuticals. There's certainly a place for pharmaceuticals, but the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals is highly, highly regulated. And so I was like, well, why don't we just produce supplements with the same rigor, like test every ingredient, do production run testing, do finished product testing. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. More expensive to do, of course, but like that just made sense. And then a product's only as good as its ingredients. And so one of my, expertise was like knowing where to source ingredients, because this is the space I lived. And so it was like, we're going to source the highest quality, most clinically effective and beneficial ingredients, regardless of cost. And we're going to try to put clinically studied ingredients in our products that have gone through human clinical studies and like really make products that create health. And so we're kind of like, I like to think of us as this like on this redemptive quest to shine a light into the brokenness that is the supplement industry and try to do this where unethical marketing and production practices and just there's so many issues. Like we're taking the exact opposite approach to try to bring to market the highest quality, safest, most clinically effective products. And so 13-year-old company, we only have 11 products. Like we do not want to be everything to everyone. We only want to do something if we can be like, we have the best joint supplement or muscle health supplement with clinical data to prove it.
Yes.
And we just kind of had to wind our way to where we are now, and happy to share that part of it. But that's us in a nutshell.
No, that's so good. And I know you are working on a few things that I am really going to be interested and excited about. But I appreciate that so much because I've told you before, but my husband and I for years really have not taken supplements, mostly because we don't trust the supplement industry for everything you just said. And also my husband's always, as a physician, knowing what and researching everything, he just will only take something if it's evidence-based. He's like double-blind, placebo-controlled, he wants all the tests. And otherwise he says it's expensive urine. And so with that, I think he's tried to eat healthy and get as much as we can out of our food. But we're also now in our 50s and we're starting to realize that maybe that's not enough. So maybe you can speak to that. Would you say supplements are a luxury or a necessity or somewhere in the middle, especially for women coming up, maybe perimenopause through menopause? What do you think about supplements as a necessity?
Yeah, so I do think they're a necessity, but let me kind of back that up a little bit. And I think it's important to call out at the top, they're a tool in a toolkit for health. And so diet and food is like the foundation. You cannot out-supplement a bad diet. And so we are pro eat very healthy, eat supplements, carbs, fats. I mean, supplements are a pillar of health. Sleep, exercise, stress management. So there's all sorts of things. But where supplements come in is, their deficiency exists in most people. And we have tests for things like vitamin D and B12. But I know, because we just spend so much time in the data, that most people are deficient. And I think there are some issues that have happened over the last 50 years, like soil depletion and degradation. And so nutrients come from the soil, and food has become a big business, and you're just not getting the nutrients you once did. So my grandparents probably were consuming fruits and vegetables days after they were farmed. Well, now, they're farmed, they're boxed, they're put on a truck, they're sent to a store, the store unpacks them. And so even that gap between harvest to when you're getting it depletes nutrients, right? So
yes. Especially if you live on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
True story.
And things have sat on a boat. Yeah.
So yet I would say, like, food is the foundation. Where supplements come in, and I'll just maybe illustrate this with a couple of examples that surprised me from my research days. So nutritional science as a field has really evolved over the last 10 to 20 years. There's been a lot of investment in nutritional science, and there's more knowledge about kind of optimal health versus, just trying to cure deficiencies. So these are two different standards. So just as a quick history lesson, the RDAs were instituted during World War II, and really they were to help prevent soldiers from becoming malnourished. So these 100% RDAs were like, this is so our soldiers can perform at good levels and not be malnourished. And so that standard kind of held. And so there's a deficiency standard, which is kind of that 100% RDA, but then there's this optimal standard. And so, like, one vitamin example would be vitamin E. So to get the vitamin E that you need, where the studies show currently like are the optimal levels, that's 400 international units. If you converted that to food, that would be 28.8 pounds of spinach per day or 2.3 pounds of almonds per day. And the data shows us this is like the optimal level for cellular health.
Oh my goodness.
That's one letter vitamin. Okay, so I could do this with more, but like you cannot
My jaw is dropping. I did not know that. Wow.
No, it was a jaw drop moment for me too, because like I was very anti-supplements actually. Like I never took them. I was like, you don't need it.
Yeah.
And then I'm encountering data like this, and I'm just like, whoa, this is surprising. And what do I do with this? And so your question was, are supplements a necessity or a luxury? And I think, for women in particular, like nutrient gaps are common, right? Vitamin D or omegas or magnesium or iron or the B vitamins. And when you kind of add hormonal fluctuations or pregnancy or menopause, you just have increased nutrient demands. And there are things that aren't tested, like iodine, that I would bet 95% plus of the population is deficient in. And so these are tools to help, number one, cure deficiency, but number two, there are standards we believe that can lead to optimal health outcomes that you cannot possibly get through food intake alone. And that's kind of where we think supplements come in to help, to just help complement diet, sleep, exercise, etc.
Yes, no, that all makes sense. That's really good information. And since you're talking to women here, and this is our Women's Wellness Month, I know that I'm not the only one who has begun to focus more on protein as I'm aging. And so can you tell us why women need more protein, especially, I feel like maybe it's beginning in the feet that we start to lose muscle mass. Inform us on that.
Yeah, so in our 30s, men and women, but we'll focus on women for sure. You start to lose just under 1% of your muscle mass per year. And then when you get to your 50s, it's between 2 to 3% of your muscle mass per year.
Yikes.
And, I was asked on a podcast recently, and this will dovetail really nicely to answer this question, is like, what is something you've learned in the last 5 years? You've been in the industry 20 plus years. What is something you've learned in the last 5 years that you would say is like has a huge impact on lifespan and longevity? And my answer was like strength training and keeping your lean muscle mass.
Yay.
It is like critical for your quality of life as you get older. And again, women and men, but women are losing muscle mass every year. Where protein is so essential, it's muscle maintenance and metabolism and mood support and hormone production. It's critically important. And so as women lose muscle mass as they age, it slows down metabolism, impacts strength. And so, yeah, I mean, prioritizing protein intake is really important.
Okay, and I don't know if you have the data, but I'm guessing most women are deficient, aren't getting as much protein as they need.
Well, so this one's tricky because it's not a one size fits all.
Okay.
Is really like body weight informs that, and activity levels inform that. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean,
Okay.
I think probably, I'd say like 50% of people don't get enough protein. And Monica, it's honestly, it's not just protein, but it's like the quality of
I was
the
just going to
protein.
say,
And
how are
so,
they getting the protein?
yeah, yeah.
There's
So
a big difference.
it's a big difference. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So piggybacking on protein, the other topic that is new to me in the last year really is creatine. And actually Previnex is the first creatine I've ever taken, and now making it a daily part of my lifestyle, especially since I am increasing my strength training. I know it used to be associated mostly with like men and bodybuilders, but can you help us understand creatine a little bit better?
I would love to. So this is one that I think I stayed away from when I just was not in the supplement industry, because I was like, oh, this is just for bodybuilders and bulking up, and like it's like a big bro supplement. But creatine is probably the most well-studied ingredient in the supplement industry. And the science on creatine is overwhelmingly positive for both men and women. I mean, it supports muscle strength, it supports brain function, it supports recovery. I mean, research shows it can benefit cognitive health, bone density, mood stabilization. I mean, there are a number of benefits, and all crucial for women, what I just called out,
Yep.
right? Especially as women aged. And
Yep.
so
And no
it is-
side effects, right? No negatives that I've ever heard of.
no negatives in the clinical data. I mean,
Okay.
we could get a little nuanced in like, where do you source the creatine from? Because I
Right.
think that's matters. And so the most well-studied form of creatine is creatine monohydrate. That's just where the studies have, not to say that there are other forms that might not be great, but right now the clinical research is like creatine monohydrate is the undisputed heavyweight champion and winner. But like, to what kind of the question, the form matters. Like we could source 10 different bags of like companies that market their creatine monohydrate as the best. I'm talking about the raw material, like ingredient suppliers. Each of those will test differently. So all of a sudden you're just like, this goes back to like just the predatory, exploitative, confusing nature of the supplement industry. So yeah, so if you have the right form of creatine monohydrate, I mean, it's an excellent ingredient and tool for longevity and overall health.
Okay.
And lots of the kind of things that may be improperly associated with creatine get that way because of like a poor form is used, so like bloating or water retention or all these things that kind of get associated with creatine.
Sure. And because you mentioned all the different benefits, I would guess you'd say even if somebody isn't strength training, maybe someone listening is like, well, that's not me, I'm not in the gym all the time. Would you say creatine is still important?
Yes. So my opinion, so we spent 2 years researching the muscle health space, and creatine being an ingredient that is like really important. And actually, to back this out, because it'll answer your question, our thought, like our customers care about 3 things we've learned. They care about longevity, they care about performance, and they care about everyday health. And so as we're looking at the space and constructing products, like that's what we're looking at. Will this improve someone's longevity, performance, and everyday health? So for creatine in particular, it really supports like lean muscle mass. So this kind of, hey, I'm going to bulk up is not really the case. So like women naturally have lower testosterone levels. So it makes significant muscle growth really difficult without intense training and like a big caloric surplus. Like that's how you're going to bulk up. So I think protein and creatine don't bulk you up. They're going to preserve lean muscle mass. They're going to enhance strength. They're going to support metabolism. And our angle on this was, without even exercising, could we create a product that would help protect muscle from breakdown due to aging?
Wow.
Because that's just going to happen as we age.
Yep.
And I think, really like the bulk up issue is like the only way you're going to gain excessive muscle is it's like really intense training. It's going to be through like chowing down a ton of food. And I think like to land the plane, like creatine and muscle health ingredients like simply help women feel stronger and more toned and like create lean muscle mass.
I love that. No, that's great. That is really good. And I'm excited. I mean, I'm just a couple months in now, but it's fun. And my boys are using it as well, and my husband. So I love that. And then I want to talk gut health briefly before we close, because I have a pretty, like I always say, I have an iron stomach. Like I don't have gut issues, but I have a couple sons who do. And you have a product called Gut and Greens that I think is just awesome. And so tell us what's in that, and whether or not people get that product, what matters about what's in it, and what we should be looking for in a product that would help us with gut health.
Yeah, well, gut health is so important. So 80% of the bacteria in our body resides in our gut. 70% of our immune cells reside in our gut. And so there are a lot of different ways to attack the gut. So one is like we have a probiotic. I know you didn't ask about this one, but the strains the level of bacteria matters, like 30 billion bacteria versus one, 6 strains versus 2. Does it have a prebiotic, which helps with the growth and colonization of the healthy gut? And so we're big fans of probiotics for just like microbiome health. But the Gut and Green Superfood product, which is our newest one that you called out, this was an interesting one. So kind of like creatine, actually, like we didn't have a strong opinion until we got into the research. We had many customers and partners asking us, like, should you take a green? Why? Why not? And we didn't have an opinion, but we started researching it. And I think what we learned was surprising. One was there's only like 7 greens that actually do anything that are worth putting in. And so another trick, Monica, of the supplement industry would be, I'm going to put like pomegranate extract on my label, but it's going to be like of 1,000 milligrams, it'll be like 1 milligram. So it's not really there, but I can put it on my label because the consumer is going to see it.
I don't like that.
No good. So we put 7 organic greens. And the reason we believe greens are important are, number 1, the digestive benefits. Number 2, the micronutrient benefit. Number 3, anti-aging benefits. And so we really leaned into that. And to go right to your question on gut is we're like, well, if one of the 3 main benefits is going to be digestive health related, why don't we put some clinically studied gut health ingredients that have like lights out clinical data, they've gone through human clinical studies, and like we can just make some big claims. And so we have an ingredient, Gut Guard, we have an ingredient Solnol, we have an ingredient SNZ 1969, all have gone through human studies. And, we have had, I have to be a little bit careful because like marketing, I'm a big like, under promise, over deliver, which is why I love when people try our products, feel benefits.
Yep.
So repairing gut lining, regularity. We've had, I could call this out because it's been clinically studied. One of the ingredients was studied on IBS C and IBS-D patients and showed like substantial improvements. And we've seen that in the customer feedback we've gotten now, which is really cool. And so, I think for your demographic, and just calling out another fun story that comes to mind is we had a partner we were looking to work with who was very skeptical. She was I'll call out the company. She was an AG1. That was her go-to greens. She just was like, hey, I'll try this. I don't think I'm going to feel a benefit. And then she, like many women in menopause, was suffering from constipation. And she took our product and it helped her with her constipation. She ran out. She's like, didn't even write us to say, hey, can you send me another jar because I'm feeling these benefits. She went back to her former product. Her constipation came right back.
Wow.
She ordered on her own, like, we would have absolutely sent her. I hope she listens to this. And we would have sent her another canister. But she came back and was like, I have to tell you a story. And she told us a story. She's like, I took yours again and my constipation went right away. And so it's not because it's magical. It's because when you put the right ingredients at the right levels where the clinical studies show you get benefits, like you actually get benefits and you can create health this way. And so that's the Gut and Green Superfoods product.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that my youngest son, Levi, who has been probably my 4 sons, the one least interested in health throughout his life until more recently. And I think that because he's getting a little more education and learning, he's really grabbing hold of it. And now he's starting to care a lot more. And probably also because he's competing in golf and he just wants to be at the top of his game. But pretty much every day, without being offered to share mine, he helped himself, gets his shaker bottle, and he's sitting there doing his schoolwork with his Gut and Greens. And he's super picky about flavor and he loves how it tastes. So I'm stoked because because he has had gut issues, and I feel like he has not complained about his stomach in the last month since he's been doing that. So for what that's worth, I've been so grateful. So appreciate
Well,
that.
that's super encouraging, and go Levi. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I'm just kind of frustrated hearing about, what sets Previnex apart. And, I'm sure there's some other companies that are doing a really good, legit job, but it's almost like, how would you know if you just walked into your local, wherever you buy your supplements? And if it's true that people can put stuff out there, I guess I'm just frustrated with the regulation of this. I mean, how would anyone know the difference? And how, I'm like, how can we get word out? But I guess that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, well, we have some ideas around getting the word out and really, really shining a spotlight, which I can tell you about. But like, I was, for whatever reason, yesterday on Centrum's website, looking at, I wonder if they have improved their ingredients to at least have not the lowest quality form. That's not going to do much, but if they've gone upstream a little, because certainly there has been a movement towards health.
Yeah.
And maybe shocking, but or not shocking, was like they haven't. They still use. So where I'm going with this is like I'm going to give you a few tips that you can apply when you read a supplement label, because really you're going to see consistency. If a brand, and it is important to call this out, like there are brands doing this well. The Previnex is not the only company. I mean, we have a big mission, and creating health is who we are. But like, yeah, there's other brands, and they'll be more in line with higher quality ingredients. And so number one, you can look at ingredients. And so I think what many consumers don't know is that there's several different forms of vitamin A and the B vitamins and vitamin C and vitamin D and vitamin E, and the form really, really matters. So when I'm looking at a supplement, I'm going right to like the parentheses next to the letter vitamin. So like, I'll give you an example. We talked about vitamin E, we talked about 400 international units and the spinach and almonds, and there are two forms primarily of vitamin E. D-alpha tocopherol, which is natural vitamin E, and then D-L-alpha tocopherol, which is synthetic vitamin E. The natural vitamin E assimilates so much better. It is not worth taking in a synthetic form. So real quick, if I see a product that has D-L-alpha tocopherol, I mean, you almost don't need to look at anything else. And so that's what I looked at on Centrum's label. I was like, oh, they must have gone to natural. It's like, it's like pennies more expensive. Like, they must have done this. You could look at things like vitamin B12. So methylcobalamin is the natural form. Cyanocobalamin is the synthetic form. Another clear cut, like, you should not, cyanocobalamin doesn't do much. The methylated form is so much better. So you eyeball that one. You could do this with folate. Is it the methylated version versus the just folic acid? So these are the things when I'm looking at a label that I'm looking at. So those are just a couple pointers.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't know all this, is there somewhere we can find a list of the better, or maybe they just want to go to Previnex and compare because you clearly are including the best forms.
You just got my brain going. We need our copywriter to write up like a guide to like what are the best ingredients versus the worst ingredients. I mean, you could go to our website. So for example, our multivitamin, we're using the highest quality forms of each and every nutrient. There's 38 nutrients. So if you're like, hey, what is the best form? That could be a good reference guide. The line is,
or people could just order Previnex, because honestly, like, I just love that we can trust that you care that much that everything's going to be the best. So that's awesome.
Education's important too. But I'd say also the Oregon State University has the Linus Pauling Institute is there. I mean, there's good information and articles and like, but it's hard. It is so hard because it's still a little bit wild west.
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited for this new journey for me, because honestly, I really had just put supplements out of my mind for so long. And it was actually our mutual friend, Lindsay Hine, who's also on my podcast this month for part of the Women's Wellness. She has a running podcast that people might enjoy checking out. But she told me about you and about Previnex. I know she's been working with you for years. And so that just got me thinking, like, maybe there are some things we're missing. So I'm just really excited about this. I feel like this year is a year I'm, like I said, a little more focused on weight training and on health and just so many different things. So this is a fun part of that journey. But before I let you go, you mentioned at the beginning what you're doing to support health around the world, especially for undernourished, malnourished children, the Get Health, Give Health initiative. I would love for you to tell us a little bit more, because to me, this just further inspires me to want to support everything you're doing.
Yeah, well, I'd love to tell you. Well, I'm going to go back to the origin because I think it's a cool story. So we were 3 years old as a company. Monica, I thought we were going out of business. It was such a hard
Business is hard, right?
Journey. And I thought there was a 99% chance that we were done. And so, but the most life-changing thing happened, and that was my daughter was born. And so I remember holding her in my arms, right? I'm like, this is incredible. Like I kind of like alluded to earlier, but like kids are dying from vitamin, and it just lit this fire to understand the problem. And so let me unpack the problem a little bit more. This is 2016 data, but 17,000 kids die every day from malnutrition. And in my mind, I thought malnutrition was a food and starvation issue. I kind of had a picture of like kids in Africa with distended bellies, and I just thought like, what really could we do about that? And what I learned was up to 45% of these kids are dying not from food or starvation, but from vitamin deficiencies. Meaning you give them vitamins, they live, you don't, they die. Like, that's unacceptable. That's a preventable problem.
So they're eating enough food. It's just not food that gives them what they need.
It's non-nutritive food. So, like, you can eat white rice for every meal, every day. You're going to have severe issues. And eventually you're going to, your systems are going to shut down because you're just so malnourished. And so this was shocking to me because I was like, we know how to make vitamins. We know how to make best-in-class vitamins. Like, we could do something. And it was really just another like walk by faith, not by sight moment of, I just felt like God was saying like, David, I've given you this business. I've given you this passion for children, a passion for health. Like, I want you to think bigger about how you can serve me. And I walked into the office knowing that like, I don't even know how we're going to do this, but like my job is just to follow. I told the team, I'm like, we're going to make a best-in-class children's multivitamin, and we're going to start donating a bottle to malnourished children with every order. And so that it took us about 6 months to kind of get that all in place. And then we started, with every customer order donating. I will say as an aside note, if you would have looked at our financials, you would have said like, David, you just took your probability of going out of business from 99% to 100%. Like again, I'm like, well, if God's calling me to do it, like I've just got to trust, I got to do it. And so like, things I could never have like imagined. If you fast forward now, we've donated over 3 million Superbites to malnourished children in 20 countries. It feels like, honestly, we're in the first inning. Like, I think this is a problem in my lifetime that is solvable. I think, if we can invest in children week after week, month after month, year after year, like you can, I mean, this goes like deeper than just food or starvation, but like how is an impoverished country going to have a shot if their population is like not growing or has stunted growth, their brains aren't developing, their bodies aren't developing. Like, this is not the way things should be. And so we can't solve every problem, but we feel like we certainly can deliver vitamins to children and help them, help create health in their life, help create flourishing. We have other ideas, like I mentioned the redemptive quest that we're on, like that's a part of it. But anyway, I get so fired up when I talk about this stuff.
Love it.
It's like creating health and flourishing. It's just, man, it's a great quest to be on. And creating jobs for underserved people, like all sorts of fun things that we get to do and kind of express our values through the business.
Yeah, there's many ways you stand out, and I appreciate the heart behind it because you're doing it for all the right reasons, and it's just really cool. So I'm thrilled that we have met, and I appreciate you taking the time to kind of share. I think we're just scratching the surface, but I will have links, of course, to Previnex, to where people can learn more about the company and the products. And, if nothing else, read all the ingredients that you've got there, compare it to what they might be getting otherwise. And goodness, I'm just really excited to partner with you. So people will hear more about Previnex in future episodes and in all the things I'm doing because I wanted to give it a real try before talking about it publicly, but I'm really excited to be partnering with you.
Well, thanks. We are really excited. Creating health changes lives. We love doing it in partnership and just appreciate you having me on. It was a fun conversation.
You bet. God bless you and aloha for now.
Christian parenting.